Part 1. The Campfire Stories. The Superstition Mountains were a place of legend, a sprawling desert wilderness known for its eerie beauty and darker tales. My brothers Devin and Daniel had always been thrill seekers. When Daniel suggested a weekend camping trip near the mountains, Devin and I hesitated but ultimately gave in. How could we say no to our older brother, the fearless leader of our trio? We packed the essentials: tents, flashlights, food, and a few beers Daniel had smuggled along. As we drove deeper into the desert, the air seemed to change. It felt heavier, almost charged, as if the land itself was watching us. By the time we set up camp, the sun was dipping below the jagged peaks, painting the sky in hues of blood orange and deep purple. A cold wind whispered through the scrub, carrying with it the distant cries of coyotes. After dinner, we sat around the campfire, the flames casting flickering shadows across our faces. Daniel, ever the storyteller, started recounting the legends of the Superstition Mountains, stories of miners gone mad, cursed gold, and ghostly apparitions. "Then there are the skinwalkers," he said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Devin's eyes widened. Skinwalkers? Like the shape-shifting witches from Navajo lore? Daniel nodded. They can take the form of any animal, or even a person. You might think you're talking to your friend, but it's not them. They mimic voices to lure you out, isolate you. That's just a story, I said, though I couldn't shake the chill crawling up my spine. Maybe, Daniel replied with a smirk, but people around here swear by it. There have been sightings of animals walking on two legs, things speaking in voices that don't belong to them. Devin shivered and pulled his jacket tighter. Stop, you're freaking me out. Good, Daniel said. Keeps you on your toes out here. Part 2. The Night Terror. Sometime after midnight, I woke to a strange sound. It was faint at first, a rustling in the bushes beyond our camp. I sat up, squinting into the darkness. The fire had burned down to embers, casting a dim orange glow. Devin? Daniel? I whispered. No answer. The rustling grew louder, accompanied by a low, guttural growl that sent shivers down my spine. Grabbing the flashlight, I shone it toward the sound. At first, I saw nothing but desert scrub and jagged rocks. Then, something moved, a flash of pale, elongated limbs disappearing behind a boulder. Daniel, wake up! I hissed, shaking him. He groaned, rubbing his eyes. What is it? There's something out there, I said, my voice trembling. Devin stirred, sitting up groggily. What's going on? Before I could answer, a voice called out from the darkness. Brian, help me. It was Devin's voice, but Devin was sitting right next to me. What the hell? Devin whispered, his face pale. The voice called out again, this time closer. Brian, Devin, Daniel. It sounded wrong, like someone trying to imitate us but getting the cadence just slightly off. We need to go, Daniel said, his usual bravado replaced by genuine fear. Grabbing our flashlights and knives, we ventured into the darkness, the cold air biting at our skin. The voice continued to call out, echoing through the canyon. It was joined by another sound, a high-pitched whistle, haunting and rhythmic. Part 3. The Encounter. As we stumbled through the desert, the terrain grew more treacherous. The moonlight barely illuminated the jagged rocks and thorny bushes. Every shadow seemed to move. Every sound made us jump. Then we saw it. A figure stood ahead, silhouetted against the pale moonlight. At first it looked human, but as we approached, the details became horrifyingly clear. Its limbs were too long, its posture unnatural, and its face Its face was featureless, a smooth expanse of pale skin. "Run!" Daniel shouted, but our legs felt like lead. The figure moved toward us, its steps jerky and inhuman. Behind it, more shapes emerged, shadows with glowing yellow eyes that flickered like candlelight. We bolted, adrenaline coursing through our veins. The creatures pursued us, their guttural growls and unnatural cries filling the night. Devon tripped, and I turned back to help him, but he screamed, "Go! Don't stop!" I hesitated, torn between saving him and my own survival. Daniel grabbed my arm, yanking me forward. "We can't help him now." Part 4. The In-Between. We ran until our lungs burned and our legs gave out. Collapsing against a rocky outcrop, we realized we were lost. The camp, Devon, everything was gone. The desert was silent now, oppressively so. Even the wind had stopped. "I think we're dead," Daniel muttered, his voice barely audible. I shook my head, refusing to believe it. "We're not dead. We need to find Devon." But deep down, I wasn't sure. Time felt warped. The moon hung frozen in the sky, and the landscape seemed to shift when we weren't looking. Then we heard it, a whistle, faint and distant. It grew louder, closer, until it was all around us. The shadows returned, moving like a tide, their yellow eyes glowing with malice. One of the figures stepped forward. Its face twisted and shifted, mimicking Devon's features before distorting into something grotesque. "Brian, Daniel," it whispered in Devon's voice. We screamed, scrambling backward, but there was nowhere to go. The shadows closed in, their cold, bony hands gripping us. Part 5. The Aftermath. When we woke, we were back at camp. The sun was rising, casting golden light over the desert. Devon was there, asleep in his sleeping bag, as if nothing had happened. "Was it a dream?" I asked Daniel, my voice shaky. He shook his head, his eyes haunted. "Number, it was real." We packed up and left without a word, the three of us too shaken to speak. When we got home, we tried to tell people what had happened, but no one believed us. "It was probably just coyotes," our parents said. But we knew the truth. The Superstition Mountains had shown us something dark, something evil. And every night since, I've heard that whistle, faint and distant, as if the shadows are still watching, waiting. We don't know if we made it out alive, or if we're trapped in some purgatory, reliving the nightmare over and over.